Hey there folks, in previous video I showed how to carve a Santa that looks like this. With the same set of stencils you can make something that looks like this. But today we're going to carve something that looks like this. So I call this the Jolly Santa, and this one I kept. This is the Wizard. I could probably be convinced to part ways with it, but he's not for sale right now. So to carve this one, we're going to be using medium-sized stencil, and this is a Jolly Santa stencil. So you can see that the cheeks are not quite as low as in this version, and they're also not pointy. So there's no downturned mustache, it's just a regular mustache with relatively high cheeks. So let's go ahead and get right to it. So to get started, I have a 2-inch block that I cut on a diagonal, and it's 6 inches long. So this is 2 inches right here, 6 inches, and a corner block. So I get my stencil, and you see it has that lip right there to help stabilize it for me. And I used to put the face up towards the top third right here, but now I found that I like a larger, more intricate hat, and the beard looks pretty good. So if you're looking at something like this, the face on that one is probably right around there. So midpoint is not so bad. Okay, so just hold it there and just trace away. Okay, that's half the face. I'll just turn it around. Make sure that the edges line up. Put that right there. Great. So I know a lot of people have asked me for this video. Unfortunately, every time I went to go film it, well, either the battery died on me or the mic died on me. Something happened where I wasn't able to get it finished. Okay, great. So that's probably the most complex part of this drawing, which is the face. And yeah, getting these curves right here was always a challenge for me, which is why I made this stencil. So all I do is I extend the hat a little bit, and really it's up to you on how it is that you want to have the hat. If you want to make it drooping to the side, if you want to just have it like this, which is a bunch of scallops, and then the ball up here. So let's just go with that. Give them whatever size brim you want, like this. And let's put the ball right here. I find that if you put the ball in the same plane as or at the same height as the brim, it kind of gets lost when you start to paint it. Okay, and then this part doesn't really matter too much because, well, we gotta get there anyway, but because you're gonna remove a whole lot of that. Same with the beard. Probably look something like this, and all this material right here is just gonna go away. So it's not even worth worrying about. Okay, let's go ahead and start carving. So I want to give you an overview of my carving setup over here. So my block of wood is pretty big. I'm using a kind of a carving bench block. So all it is a piece of wood with a 2x4 at the end over here, and some pieces over here that I've glued down, and there's a small gap in there, and that's primarily for holding the piece of wood at different angles so it doesn't slip, because if you just have it straight on the piece of wood like that, it's a possibility it could slip on you. So in addition to using a knife, we're also going to be using a chisel, and that's to remove larger amounts of wood, but you could definitely just do this with a knife. Anyway, I just want to give you a quick rundown of the carving setup that I have, and it makes it 100 times easier to get rid of some of that wood. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to shape that nose, or at least set it in. So you can see it's an upturned nose, and that kind of gives them a little bit more jolly expression. So just follow that line, make a stop cut. Okay, great. Now we're going to do the bridge of the nose. So this cut right here, and we're going to do a V cut like this from the bottom and the top. Should look something like that. Okay. Alright, so now we're going to get rid of all this material up here. So put it against the block if you wanted to. So we're just going to remove as much of that material as we can up here. This is where that chisel definitely comes in handy, so I'll show you exactly how to do that. So now all we do is we follow these same lines that we made over here, and we take them pretty much up to the top of that bridge right there. So like that, straight line down to there. Straight line down to there. Okay, and now we're just gonna remove that piece like this. Okay, same for the other side. So like that. Nice and deep. A little bit right here. Okay, excellent. Okay, so now with this line right here, we're gonna get our knife in and carve down. So we're gonna shape that plane of the eye and up. So it's two cuts. It's one down and one up. And you're trying to stay on that same plane of that original line where you cut. And so this kind of takes some back and forth. Like that. Now, of course, the tricky part is getting both the left and the right to be equal. Alright, so good. Alright, so the same thing, so you could see how deep it is, and that profile like that. So the point here is to get the profile of the eye to be parallel to the back of the piece of the wood. Because if it's angled too far, like my knife is right here, that just looks awkward when you're looking at it from the front. So you pretty much have to get the interior of this eyeball set inward. Okay, let's do the other side. So naturally, when you do one side, it never comes out just like the other. In fact, this side is probably my weaker side, so this one takes a little bit more work for me to get correctly. But like I said, you kind of gotta hunt for it, and eventually they'll come out pretty good. Okay. And don't worry about taking off too much on one side or the other, because you can always adjust for it. Okay, so one thing right off the bat, so I can tell that this line right here is too high, and that I've taken off too much material here, so that's okay. I can take off some more on this side, but I have to lower that line to be at the same height as this one. I don't know if you could tell from there. Yeah. Okay, so the same thing. So down a little bit. Let's see if that fixed it. Yep, that was all I needed. Okay, so now this guy looks like I need to go from here, and I just need to take off on the front. I don't need to move that line any. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now what I want to do is I want to extend these eye planes. I want to make them as tall as possible. And there's a number of ways I can just do it slowly, right? Okay. So I want to remove as much contour as possible. So I want it to be as flat as can be. Okay, all the while checking, making sure that the left and the right are as equal as possible. Okay, that looks pretty good except for up here. I need to lower him just a little bit. Okay. Alright, let's go ahead and draw the eyes. Okay, so to draw the eyes, I'm going to use this complicated looking stencil thing. But if you really pay close attention, it's not that bad. What it's trying to show is the main part right there is the actual meat of the eye. That little section up at the top of it is the eyelid, and then the rest of it is just kind of to guide the pencil around. Okay, and that's kind of the interface between the eyelid and the eye socket. Okay. So there's a left and a right, conveniently enough. So set one in. There's poster putty at the back of this, and that allows it to kind of stick in place without it moving around too much. Of course, gives you a little bit of trouble, but here you could tell that because these two have these rods sticking out of them, they look pretty symmetric, right? They're not in vastly disproportionate directions, like one isn't pointing over here or over there. They're actually kind of pointing pretty much parallel or perpendicular to the back of the piece of the wood, which is kind of nice. So they're off a little bit, but not so bad. Okay, and I like to give it just a little bit of space off the nose, of course. Not really get it all the way in there, but because at the end of the day, my knife needs to clear. So right there, make sure that they're flat to the bottom there, and just trace around. Now, you're gonna have to fill in a lot of it, but it's a good head start. Okay, let's do the other one. So I used to draw eyes by hand, and I was always disappointed because, of course, you know, they never come out quite the same. And I would spend so much time trying to fix them, fix the drawing, and not the carving. So I created these guys. So, okay, let's see how they came out. That one could use some help. Actually, it's not so bad. Okay, so sometimes one comes out better than the other. And like I said, you gotta fill in some of it. Okay. So this one doesn't have that nice curvature that the other one has. Let's try to fill it in. Alright. So you can either switch to a detail knife or just use the tip of your knife. So what I do is I start at the top and I just lightly trace that outer line right there. And that's going to start to separate the eye from the eye socket. That. Okay. The center there. Up. And from here down. I am going to switch to a detail knife. Cut that one in again a little bit more. Okay, now all I'm going to do is remove that sliver. And set separate this, put your knife in there. So try not to remove very much of that line from the eyelid, but if you do, that's okay, like I'm doing right there. Just leave this very little bit right there in the center. It'll at least give you a gauge as to where the rest of the line needs to go. Okay, so there, just redraw that line. Okay. Now this one, I find that I can't really drag the knife. I have to put it in and score straight downward, because I've torn the wood more often than not when I try to drag the knife to cut the wood. Okay, great. So the same thing, just remove that sliver of wood up to it. It's essentially a stop cut, what you just did. Okay, and a little bit more on this side. Okay, now we can just remove some of that eyelid to make it kind of proportional. Okay, and then the last touch for that eye is to angle that eye socket outward. So right now it's kind of like straight. So all we're going to do is take our knife and remove this sliver of wood right here. And try not to get your knife any further into the eyeball. So this is the trickiest part right here, this turn. Because one, you can't see the tip of the knife, and two, it's just a tricky turn. There we go. And just keep on taking little by little to get that eyeball shaped like that. Alright. Really, you don't need a whole lot of separation, just enough so that it's recognizable as an eyeball. And I think we're already there, but you know, there's just a couple little pieces that are bothering me. Okay, great. So, same thing for the other side. I like to do the eyeballs pretty early on in the carving because, well, it kind of makes or breaks the carving, doesn't it? Okay, so there we are. If the eyeballs are no good, you may just decide to throw it in the fire before you even attempt to finish it. And that's fine by me. I like to refer to this as the $100 Santa because I have sold it for very close to $100. And I don't doubt that I could sell it for $100. I just haven't made that many of them, to be frank. Okay. Great. You can also shape the bottom of the eyeball, give it a little bit of roundness if you want to. At the end of the day, the paint is really what makes the eyeball kind of stand out. So if you have this as a completely flat surface, that's perfectly fine too. I mean, we probably all know of plenty of carvings that have nothing that resembles an eyeball when it's carved, and then afterward, after it's painted, you would not be able to tell it there was nothing there. A little bit more depth. Right here. See if I can round this over with my larger knife. There we go. Excellent. Let's do the same thing over here. Okay. It's kind of tricky because you're dealing with like slivers of wood in this case. Alright, I think that's good enough. Alright, so let's go ahead and move on to the next part. So first thing that we're going to do is we're going to remove some more material down here. Ooh. That is not happy. Better to use the chisel. So what I use is a 1-inch chisel like this, and just a regular socket chisel. And all I do is I brace it against this. Since it has a 2x4 piece right here, I can push against it. So I can either just push with my hands. What I like to do is push with my shoulder. So right here, and except that one doesn't really want to do that. So let's take a smaller chunk. Just like that. And that's how you're able to take off a lot of material at once. Okay, and then the same thing for the hat. So right here. Okay, and if you want to control the depth, if you hold your chisel like this, it's just going to kind of bury itself in. But if you hold it bevel down, then you can kind of control how deep it goes by varying the height of the handle on the back end. And these are by no means finishing cuts, so if it looks a little rough, that's perfectly fine. What I do like to do is taper the end right here of the beard, because I don't really want to be dealing with a lot of material back there. Same thing with the hat. I want to get this side very close to the back. Okay. So now that that's out of the way, now we can get back to the face. Perfect. Okay, so redraw this guy right here. And redraw the mouth. Okay. So now, I like to take my V tool and just outline all that stuff. So, start over here. Outline the face. Okay, and let's do the side of the face and the cheeks. And you're going to come back with a knife and score all that. And do the same thing for the mustache. Excellent. Alright, so now come along with your knife and just trace all those same lines. And you're saying, gosh, you probably could have done that to begin with. And the answer is yes. But, as you can see, it's almost mindless. I can just come in here with my knife and just trace those lines without having to worry if I strayed from the pencil line. I just have to follow the groove that the V-tool left behind. Like that. Okay, so let's trim the edges of this nose, so like this, and up a little bit. And same over here. It's kind of the nostril area, and then we're going to extend those lines. Extend those lines into the nose right here. Okay. Make sure that everything is nice and deep. So you may want to come in again and score everything. And we're going to do that to the mustache as well. Okay, the hat, the forehead area. The thing that really impresses me about carving is that no matter how much you mess up, there's still wood back there that you could take away. Can't add it back, but you can always take it away. Okay, so now the moment of truth. So I like to start up here in the temples. And I'm just going to start relieving that face from the surrounding wood. Okay, and then the same thing over here. Get your thumb out of the way so if the knife slips, it doesn't cut you. Okay, and so let's first relieve the face. So what I like to use is a number 7, and this looks like a 3/8 inch number 7. And this along with the V-tool and 2 knives came with the Flex Cut starter pack, and that's pretty much what I like to use. Anyway, so just use this gouge, number 7, and just little by little, you're gonna scallop away around the face. Try not to go super deep, but it's okay if you gouge into the actual the piece that you're trying to relieve away. So there is a little bit of extra material built in there, but if you know that you're just gonna really jam it in there, instead of V-tooling the line, V-tool a little bit outside of the line, and then that way you have more material to kind of play with. Like that. Okay. So this is kind of cat and mouse here. So come along with the knife, separate it. See what that did. Okay. So I like to have a lot of separation between the face and the beard. So I'm going to go in and take a little bit more off. And remember that right here you need a little bit of a lip for a mouth if you want to do that. But you'd be surprised the little amount of material that you actually need to do that. Plus you can also change the shape of the mustache so it's angled downward as opposed to keeping the original angle of the piece of wood. So this is what I'm talking about, these marks right here. If you go too deep, then, well, obviously you're gonna have to remove more material. But that's okay. That we could mess around with that and take it off and deal with it, and it'll still look good. Plus also, when you oil carvings, I've found that a lot of those gouge marks, a lot of those knife marks tend to disappear, especially if you dip your carving into the oil as opposed to just brushing it on. It really soaks in there and kind of expands the grain a little bit. Okay, yeah, it's pretty amazing how that stuff just falls apart. Falls away from it. Okay, so let's fix this guy down here. Excellent. Okay, so now we're gonna start to shape the, let's take a little bit of meat off of here, off of the temple. Off the forehead, and off the other temple. Okay. And start to round over the side of that face, just like that. So that's how we took off those gouge marks. We're gonna do the same thing on this side. Slowly inch in there. And another secret is that the angle of the face doesn't have to be like this. In fact, the back of the face, or rather the piece of face that's very close to the beard, can be angled slightly inward. It actually gives it more of a three-dimensional effect when you look at it. So, this side, I don't really need to do that, but over here, where the beard, where you can see those gouge marks are a little bit thicker, and I don't have that much material to play with, just kind of undercut it a little bit. So like this. Like this. Okay. Okay, so let's shape this forehead a little bit. Looks a little funny right there, so let's fix it up some. Okay, now I use that same number 7, and I just separate the eyebrows, just like that. Okay. And now I like to just create a flat plane for the eyebrows to be in. Make sure that the left and the right ones look pretty similar. And make sure to set that forehead in. A little bit more flat plane for the eyebrows on this side. Let's take off a little bit more right there. Okay, so now let's start to shape the nose and the cheeks. So, one thing I noticed is that this mustache right here is a little bit larger than on the other side. Honestly, you probably won't be able to tell when it's done. Okay, so let's start over here. So all we're going to do is just going to round this over a little bit more. So take your knife in there. And over here we're going uphill. It's kind of not the best way to cut, but it's doing it. Okay, so just like that. And now, gradually get that cheek to be the same contour, or rather, to approach that angle. Okay. So there you go, there's a nice round cheek. On this side, the same thing. So kind of a steep angle as you get to the inner face, between the mustache and the cheek, and then kind of smoothen it out. And if you need to, you can always go deeper. Okay, and the same thing for the mustache. So the mustache is going to have that swooping angle. separate the cheeks from the nose a little bit. So right here. Same thing on the other side. We're gonna go ahead and do that nose here pretty shortly too. Okay, so with your pencil, I'm gonna draw those nostrils. Something like this. And same thing on the other side. Okay, those look pretty similar. Where's my V tool? Here it is. Okay, so same V tool. Right here and in. Right here and in. A little bit more. Good. Alright, now let's shape it up. So first thing is, take this guy off right here, that excess material. Same thing over here. Okay, there we go. Pretty good looking nose. So now just round it over a little bit. Give it a little bit of shape. And knock off all the sharp edges. Okay. And I think this nose is a little bit too high up, so I'm going to take some off. Let's round over the edge of that nose. Alright, let's fix up that other side of the mustache. As you can see, there's quite a bit that goes into this carving, and I think that's probably why I like to refer to it as a $100 Santa. But actually, once you're done with the face, the rest of it is actually, you know, kind of free to do what you please. Now, shape the top of this guy. And I like to undercut this a little bit, just like that, and shape it. And just continue to shape those cheeks. And kind of round them over a little bit. Okay. And really the roundness just comes from taking off that initial layer of from when you got the basswood. Okay, and now let's shape the underside of the mustache as well. So you're just gonna round it over, just the same. Okay, shape this guy up a little bit. There we go. Alright, I think that's a pretty good looking face. Clean that up. If you don't have one of these, it is transforming. It gets rid of all the fuzzies and everything, and really kind of cleans up carving. Okay. Alright, so now I think we can move on to the rest of the carving. So, I've done a video on the beard, I think we should still include it here, but I think what probably best to focus on next is, let's do the mouth and then let's do the hat. And if you want to stick around for the beard, that'd be great. Okay, so mouth, like this, this. That's kind of why I didn't include it in the stencil, is because it's so far along in the carving that by the time that you draw it up on the initial layers, you're going to end up cutting it away and being like, well, what was that for anyway? So, anyway, there it is. So I like to trace just outside of it with the knife. Make sure that your fingers are not in the path of the knife if it does slip. That's how I have this hole in this glove right here. You can kind of see my finger. Anyway, so either you're controlling it with your opposite hand, like this. My thumb is being used as a lever, or there's nothing on the other side. So right there. If the knife were to slip, there's nothing underneath it. Okay. Just take it up to that stop cut. Yes, it looks a little dirty initially, but I promise you it'll clean up. Okay, so now the second part of the mouth is to open it up. So like this. And come in with your knife and take off that sliver. Yep. Now, just cut downward. And take off those pencil lines. The mouth doesn't need to be big. Right? But should also not be super tiny. Okay, so now you can remove some of these scallops. that looks pretty good. Okay, so before we get too much further along, let me go ahead and show you how I finish off the face. So the first thing that I do is I'm going to use my regular V-tool, which is a 60-degree V-tool. So first thing is I'm going to do the mustache. So all I do for that is just some lines like this. So there's light cuts. You can even switch to the micro V-tool, which is a 45-degree. But since I already started on that, I'm going to use the 60 for the rest of it. So I like to curve half of them one way and half the other way. Okay, so I've done enough on that one. Switch to the 45. In case you're wanting to buy a V-tool, the 45 is about as shallow of an angle as you can get. They do sell a 30-degree, and I was under the impression that it would work pretty well. Come to find out, it does not work very well. In fact, it causes a lot of tear out because, well, I guess that's what happens with basswood. So, in case you're wondering what happens with a 30-degree V-tool. Okay, and then do the underside as well. Okay, cool. With eyebrows, I like my file V-tool because it does not cause very much tear out. All I do is a couple lines like this, relatively shallow, like that. Okay. And then the same for the other side. They're not straight up and down, they're at an angle. If you do them straight up and down, it's just going to look spooked, scared. So we'll do them a little bit angled. Okay? Alright, and then, let's see, the last thing is the bags under the eyes. So for this one, I'm going to draw it like this. That looks pretty even to me. Okay. So once again, the big V-tool, kind of angle it away from the eye, and just go like that. Same thing on the other side. Angle it away from the eye. Then you can use a small one and finish it off. Okay. And then there's just two more lines to do. So one line like this, and one right there. And those old man lines. Up and up. Up and up. And if you wanted to, you could always take a knife and kind of do a little bit more rounding. In fact, I think this one needs a little bit more right here. Not a whole lot more. Okay. Let's take the brush. go. There's the face. And that looks pretty good. Okay, cool. So let's move on to the hat now. Okay, so let's go ahead and finish rounding it off with our knife first. So what I mean by that is taking these corners right here. Same thing over here. And while we're at it, let's round over this stuff on the beard too. Okay. So now what you gotta do is kind of decide what your hat's gonna look like. So let me show you this one. So that one's kind of crazy what we got going on up there, but as you can see, the ball is right here, and then this section terminates up here. So let's do something like that. So yeah, so there we have our ball. Let's do this guy something like that. And then he's gonna go do something weird like this. Kind of small, and then we're gonna have another one that goes over here. Play a scallop like this. And this is kind of supposed to resemble a very floppy hat. And if you like doing it like this, great. If not, then, you know, choose your poison. Okay, I think that looks kind of cool. So let's do that. So our friend here is going to be the V tool. So first thing, I'm going to go ahead and not have this section of the hat sticking back out over here. So I'm going to go ahead and take that out. Okay, so first thing, I'm going to outline that ball. Next, I'm going to do the brim. Alright, and now I can start to do those scallops. So the first one I'm really concerned about is the hat one, or rather the ball one. So I'm going to go ahead and do that guy first. And that guy we need to change the shape of him, but let's go ahead and outline him. Let's do this next one over here. So let's do this guy. Okay, excellent. So now, we're just going to outline with our knife again. Same thing for the bowl. And if you can't get the knife in as deep on the first try, that's okay. Just, do a light cut and then come back. So right here. And let's do the rest of it. Excellent. All right, so now all we're going to start doing is separating all these pieces. So take my knife, take it up to that cut. And the cool thing about this is that when you get to the end, to the edge, like I said with the face, don't let it be perfectly flat. Undercut it a little bit. So these guys right here, they're slightly tapered backward, so it looks more three-dimensional. Okay, let's make sure that's nice and cut in right there. Good. See? Just creating some separation. Unfortunately, the ball is the trickiest part because it's at a curve. Let's see if we can get it to work out. Alright, that looks like pretty good scalloping, and we have one final touch to add to this. Okay, still want to shape this ball a little bit. Round over all those hard edges. Same thing down here. Alright, so secret sauce to this hat is going to be this gouge. And this is a number 10, sorry, number 9, 10 millimeter. So all I do is really just kind of give it some gouge lines. Alright, so all we're doing is taking off light amounts, and it's just giving it just enough texture to make it interesting. Go. And once again, try to make the back a little bit undercut. Okay, let's do the rest of it now. You don't have super long continuous lines. Definitely break it up a little bit. So in this case right here, I need to come back in here and do a little bit more. Right. Let's try this guy now. Let's do that last one up top. Look at that. That looks kind of cool. Okay, for the brim, this is a number 11, a 3mm. So it's also referred to as a veiner. And what I like to use for the nose. So I like to angle the nostrils like this. Take that veiner, and just poke it in like that. Make them a little bit larger if you need to. And just come in with your knife and undercut it a little bit. If you need to, you can widen them, keep them small. Okay. Like I was saying, for the brim, I like to use this guy, and I just taking it at an angle. Kind of vary the lengths, heights, the depths, where they start, where they finish. Look at that. That's a cool looking brim. Number 11, 3mm. Okay, and same thing for the hat. So because they already have that separation there, you'll be able to tell that it's not connected. But you gotta make sure that line is clear. Otherwise, it'll just look like the same, one big mass. So flip it around and go downhill. Don't worry about gouging it too hard, the outside of that. Where did I put my knife? Okay. Let's go back with the gouge. Clean that up a little bit. Make sure I take all those knife marks and gouge marks out. Alright guys, the only thing that's left is the beard. And like I said, I have another video on that, but if you want to stick around, you're more than welcome to. Still don't know if this video is going to be one piece or if it's going to be broken up into many other sections. At the very least, we will break it up somehow into one big video maybe. Okay, so let's see. This is what this guy looks like. So I think we're going to do something similar to that. Or I guess we could do something like this. So really, it's just your preference how it is that you do it. So I'll show you what I'm going to do. I'm really not tied to any one way. Let's see. Okay, we'll see if that looks good. Alright, so let's go ahead and start with the V tool. Go pretty deep if you want. You can keep it shallow. It's pretty much all going to change anyway. Whew, slipped. That's okay. Okay. This way. Okay, now for the magic. So, the way I do this is I get my knife in there and I do as deep of a cut as I can. You can see that knife is pretty well in there, probably up to 1/4 of an inch in some cases. Okay, so now all we do is take our knife and make it like a V-tool. So we're going to separate each of those cuts into a trough. And that's how we get that really drastic depth like we do like in this one. Okay, so let's start over here. There you go, just like that. do that to the rest. Alright, so it needs a little bit of cleanup. But overall, I think we got it. Good. Let's brush it off a little bit. little bit right there that we need to clean up. But overall, not bad. I think that looks pretty dramatic. And now, the last thing to do is come back with our V-tool, if I can find it, right here, and just gouge right in between all those locks, just like that. So I think that's pretty cool how it looks almost like a mirror image of it. I didn't really intend for it to be like that, but gosh darn it, that's pretty cool. Alright. Okay. Just one or two per lock, and make sure that they make sense, right, that they're going in the direction of the lock. You can also make them pretty deep, and it doesn't have to be just on that face that's on the outside. You can also get on the inside of it and give it a little bit more depth and dimension and kind of mystery. I would love to see some people try this carving, and if you do, please tag me in it. I would love nothing more than to see other people try to do this work. Yeah. You can see it's already starting to transform. You can always go back in a couple of those places and add some more ridges to it. Alright guys, I know this has been a long one, but I think it was well worth it. You can see you just need to touch up here and there. Very cool. Very cool stuff. And, if you have any ideas on new stencils or different ways of carving this guy, anything that you'd like me to try, just leave me a comment, give me a shout out. I'm happy to give new things a try and to experiment with different techniques. Okay guys, so there it is. There is your $100 Santa. Of course, what's left is to oil him, and I use boiled linseed oil, nothing fancy there. And then when I paint them, I leave the face unpainted, and you can see it's starting to yellow because of the boiled linseed, and I kind of like that effect. And in fact, I like to see that grain kind of come out through the face. So this guy will get some paint, this guy will get some oil, and then there you go. So there you have it, the Jolly Santa out of a 2-inch block. I hope you guys enjoyed, and give it a try yourself. See you next time.